what Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions established about our beloved characters that we all know and love from the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters era, I have a belief that there's still stories to be told, at least with two of our original characters, that being Yugi Moto and Joey Wheeler. I believe that there is still something that can be done with these two in particular, considering what they had in mind for their futures. Joey, of course, wanting to take his shot at the pro leagues, and Yugi still sticking around his grandpa's shop, but being interested in creating his own games. It's my belief that it's about time the true King of Games get his own dedicated anime now that he no longer requires help from the Pharaoh attempt. But before we get into that, good day, Duelists. My name is Ren, and I'm here to pitch a potential idea for a brand new Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Now, before we get into that, we should obviously cover the real-world logistics of what's been going on. Obviously, we've had a change in studios for the animation of the anime, which led to Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s and Go Rush, which is obviously very much different from what we've been used to in terms of animation style, etc., for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series and franchise as a whole. However, Konami did in fact start their own animation studio, so there is still room for them to start striking out and creating all types of different products and different investments, and I think that this is definitely something that they should consider. So, Dark Side of Dimensions ended with Taya leaving the group, and obviously the others will probably be doing the same in different ways, probably still maintaining some level of contact as they'll always be friends and always be connected, like Taya tended to say. But there's still something that I think we could do here with Yugi and Joey. Now, what I would say about Joey before we get to Yugi is that it's my belief that Joey definitely needs a more focused and updated type of deck, maybe a structure deck, which, speaking of, as of the recording of this video, Kaiba is about to get what I'd argue is probably one of the best structure decks to come out for the OCG and ideally the TCG sometime soon in the future. This particular structure deck for Kaiba, it's looking great. You're getting all your new cards and some old fan favorites as well. And I think that Joey needs that kind of same treatment, and if and when something like that happens, which I am definitely aware that there's plenty of Red Eye support in particular, but I'd love a more Joey-centric deck focused on all of the kind of cards that he played, and maybe some retrained, updated versions. I know that there are some that have come out, but I still think that there's more work to be done on that, and so if and when that happens, maybe that'll lead to a potential future video. But Yugi in particular, I think that there is a particular deck that has come out most recently which represents him specifically, which I think would be the most ideal deck for him to play in this theoretical new anime. I think that the gold, or rather shining sarcophagus deck is the ideal deck for him. Now, for those that maybe don't know about this deck or know what the history behind it is heavily inspired and rather a direct reference to the cards that Yugi played towards the end of the original Duel Monsters series. So, we're seeing retrained cards of Gandora, Marshmallow, the Gadget Boys, and plenty other cards, which I'd like to think that there's definitely going to be more coming out over time. Maybe we'll get some Dark Magician Girl here, and maybe some Valkyrion over there. I'd like to think that that's probably going to be the future for this particular deck, but I would say that this is the ideal deck for Yugi to play in this anime following the Dark Side of Dimensions movie. I think that this deck is perfect because it really is just a complete symbolic, if anything. It's very symbolic of the fact that he's now ready to stand on his own, and I think if he's going to lead in his own dedicated anime, no matter how long or short it may be, I think it's ideal for him to have a deck that really just symbolizes who he is as a person, as a duelist, and it really does look great in terms of play for more updated and more modern play as well. So there's a little bit of connectivity there in terms of players that might be more invested in the current iteration of the game, but also for players who are definitely more so for the nostalgia. And considering that Konami tends to cater to nostalgia pretty frequently, they might as well do something to kind of bolster that and create and generate some more investment in that. So an anime could probably do the trick. That being said, I think for Yugi specifically, it would still be great to see him playing the game, of course, which is where this deck would come in. But at the same time, it would be interesting to see if he does in fact do what he said that he was going to do, which is create his own games. And it would be cool to see how that influences and impacts and affects the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! In this anime and moving forward. Now, it's my belief, and you could disagree, you could agree, that Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions, not only is it meant to be a continuation after the original manga, but I think that it precedes Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Considering the technology that Kaiba utilizes in this film, it's pretty evident that it's not following what the anime set out to establish about the show and the timeline and where things would be before the next series, GX. So I would like to think that this movie is pretty much the prelude to what would eventually lead to a time where technology is so advanced and so much greater in capabilities that we would eventually reach a timeline that looks like Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. But I think that in between that, there's still some things that can be done. There's still some interesting duels to be had, some maybe new characters to meet, and some decks that are maybe familiar or new to show off as well. But again, if we're gonna keep doing nostalgia points, then we might as well do something with some substance to it. And I think that this kind of anime would be perfect for that. But that being said, that is effectively my pitch. We could definitely go into more details, and I'd love to hear any thoughts, opinions, etc. And even some other ideas relating to pitches for different animes that Konami could invest in regarding Yu-Gi-Oh! Down in the comments below. I'm definitely open to hearing any thoughts, opinions, etc. So don't hesitate to drop them on down there. That being said, thank you for taking time out to give a listen to this video. I'm certainly interested in something along these lines, and I think that just to kind of give a shout out to it as we're gonna wrap up here, but yeah, there was a particular duel that took place at one of the YCS events. It was a live voice-acted duel between the original voice of Yugi and the original voice for Joey, now voicing for Grandpa. And this showed off the Shining Sarcophagus deck versus the new Exodia deck. And I think that video, that awesome duel that we got to see, for those that haven't seen it, it'll again be linked at the end of this video. I think that's what really kind of just inspired this. Not to mention I've been playing on Dueling Nexus. Want to shout out that. I love that website. It's great for dueling and building decks and whatnot. Gosh, it's been really fun playing this deck, whether against other competitive decks or some more casual decks. It's been fun both ways. Win or lose, it's really been a good time. And just a lot of this really revolves around the Shining Sarcophagus deck as a whole, and that's what really inspired this video. Not to mention, I may or may not be potentially building that deck as a recording of this video in real life. Which, speaking of, if this is your first time being on this channel before, well, I tend to do deck profiles here and there, and in particular, I tend to do deck profiles more geared towards casual play. So I'm not really looking to necessarily cater to a competitive scene, because there's obviously tons and tons of channels out there that do that. But sometime in the future, perhaps, I will be showing off a certain deck that I have been working on, and that might get its own deck profile. But other than that, thank you again so much for taking the time to watch this video. Again, give me your thoughts. I'm super interested in hearing if anybody else has had similar ideas or some other ideas that could turn into a potential anime. Well, of course, we could still end up getting a new anime with a new protagonist as usual, but it'd be great to see more types of anime all centered around the Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe. Other than that, thank you again so much for your time. And until next time, I end my turn.